Welcome back to Daddyhood. Today is a special episode. Not really season 1, not quite yet season 2. We just felt it was important to get here and share our story more and answer some questions that you guys have. There's a lot of questions that didn't feel appropriate to answer over Instagram and or on Threads or Twitter or anything. So we figured that we would join you on this podcast. And full disclosure, Bishop is with us. So if you hear little grunts and noises, currently being fed by Jordan. Hi, babe.
Hi.
We have been talking about getting back on this episode for a while, and mainly because people have been asking us a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But do you want to catch people up?
Well, I think what's interesting is your fans and followers are asking the same questions that our family and friends are asking.
Yeah.
So that's what made me realize there's a lot that people don't understand about like what we're doing and how.
Yeah, I think the other thing I'll say is season 1 of Daddyhood, I'm really, really proud of it. I was really excited about it. And I also read a lot of the reviews and the comments. And I took a lot of it, and I'm going to be applying it towards season 2. And one thing I just want to note is season 1 was a big in the weeds with fertility, just to like give basically everybody an understanding of the journey that we went on, all of the decisions. So if you haven't caught up on season 1 of Daddyhood and you want to start there, that is mainly about the fertility journey. Now we really truly are in our Daddyhood era, and season 2 is going to change a lot. The format, the conversations are going to change a lot.
It's not going to be in our house anymore.
It's definitely not going to be in the house anymore. Thank you for letting me do that. But anyway, I think to start, we did get a lot of the same questions, and I have some of them here with me that we will get into. But do you want to, talk about maybe the first and most popular question?
Sure. Yeah, I think everyone wants, half of the questions that people ask is like, whose sperm did we use to make him?
Well, that's the nicer way to put it. We get the question.
There's a lot of permutations of it, like who's the dad?
Who's the dad? Who's the father? Who's the biological material? Whose sample was collected? You name it, we've heard it / seen it.
Yeah.
And I'll just be honest, like some of it doesn't feel good when you read it. I feel like
most people are well-intentioned.
Yeah.
But it's still, there are a lot of questions that are just a little invasive that you don't ask people. Like we had like questions about our sex life that people ask are like inappropriate. Like, if you're close friends, people I think can ask those, but this feels like in that vein where it's just kind of like, okay, that's not really any of your business.
What I don't like about it is most of the time, you're right. Most of the time it is well-intentioned and they just are curious.
It just pops into someone's mind and you can see they're like, yeah.
But I think the majority of the time they're doing it in a way to almost like disqualify one of us. And I don't like that. That doesn't make me feel good. And I think like that's what I just would like to challenge and leave with people to think about is to the person receiving the question, it almost is in a way taking a shot at us where it's like, you're not really the father. Like that's sort of how the tone and what I feel from it. So it's just not a question that I like receiving. It's not a question I like getting. And quite frankly, it's not a question that I'll be answering publicly.
Well, we're his parents and, he's our child and there is no world in which either of us is going to feel that more or less because of whose sperm was used. And, I also think it doesn't have anything to do with us being a same-sex couple. Like we have a dear friend who, because of health reasons, had her entire family, 3 children through surrogacy, and people have taken shots at her, like, oh, even her friends, like, oh yeah, you'll just never have that bond because that you do if you like carry your baby.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is wrong with people? Like people who want to have a family and build a family. Yeah. Thank God that there's science. Before this was possible, people just had to like let a dream of theirs go unrealized. By the way, it goes without saying that lots of people adopt and foster, and those people are incredible. But I think it's cool that for the first time in human history, like if you haven't been able to have a child on your own for whatever reason, science and medicine can help you.
Yeah, and there's definitely no right way to do this. Like you can go about it in so many different ways, through adoption, through foster care, through surrogacy. For us, obviously, IVF and surrogacy was the route that we chose, and I'm glad we did.
Yeah, me too. I don't want to sound harsh. Like a lot of our close friends have asked that question, and we're not like offended.
Yeah.
I think it's just the kind of thing that, like, by the way, as gay men, we learned a lot about what to say to our trans friends.
Yeah.
You know, there's some questions that aren't appropriate.
Right.
Like, have you had different surgeries? Like, you don't say that.
Yeah.
So there's a learning process, and that's why I think I feel comfortable talking about this. Most people are nice and well-intentioned, and they're happy for us. And then there are just some things that people say or ask that hit you and like land a certain way. And I think that we should just be honest about that so people know.
Yeah. So in the nicest way possible, and to use this as a learning moment, it doesn't matter. He's our son. He's always going to be our son.
Yeah, and you want to go to the next most popular thing?
Yeah.
He's our son, and he doesn't have
a mother. I think that is something, if I could scream it from the rooftop, I would. Our child has 2 dads. He does not have a mother.
Yeah.
And he will never have a mother, and he won't have a mom. And he's going to have an incredible, amazing life with 2 loving dads.
And we both are super close to and love our moms, and we love moms.
I'm literally a mama's boy. And
yeah, well, think of all the people that you know in your life, whoever's listening, who were raised by a single parent or who sadly lost a parent when they were young. I mean, there are lots of people who don't have a mom or a dad.
Yeah.
There are millions of families and children who are being raised by single parents who don't have a mom or a dad. And like, there are a lot of families where there are 2 moms or 2 dads. Yeah. And so it's all good.
Yeah, I think it is all good, but also I think it's important to acknowledge that like people commenting and or pushing that onto us is really rude, and it's really disrespectful, and it's not something that I want to be. I'm very quickly stacking my block list on Instagram.
Sometimes it's rude and disrespectful, and again, other times it isn't. People, some people don't know that, there are comments sometimes of like, this child was ripped away from its mom.
Not the truth.
Not at all,
yeah.
Right? We made Bishop because there was an egg donor who's a separate person from the incredible woman who carried him, who's our surrogate. Yeah. And by the way, neither of them feels in their heart like he's their child.
Yeah, I think as a learning thing, the term we use is he has an egg donor. Like that, he doesn't have a biological mom. He doesn't have a mom. Like, he had an egg donor, and he had a surrogate that brought him into this world.
I think this is an interesting time to say too, like, we're living through, history being made at a very fast pace. And when we were exploring this, we got introduced to a company that is on the frontier of being able to make babies without an egg and a sperm. So same-sex couples within 5 or 10 years, like, this has already been done in labs and tested in animals, and it will get FDA approval in the next 10 years. Yeah. I mean, depending on, I guess, what's going on in politics and culture, but it will be scientifically possible for that to happen. And people are going to have lots of questions about that. 20 years ago, we talked about, should stem cell research be allowed? And, it was George W. Bush as president. People were like, absolutely not, and we can't do this. And now it's like not something we talk about. And stem cells are an important part of medicine and all kinds of different treatments. So,
yeah. I think right now the conversation around IVF is really polarizing. And I don't know, I personally don't think it should be. If anything, I think it's incredible the science and the innovation and all of the people who played a role in our journey. And for those of you who aren't watching on the YouTube channel, those noises are Bishop, and he's currently being burped by Jordan mid-feeding, because you cannot plan anything these days. Yeah, I think I want to back up just from the questions. I want to back up from the questions and go into our story, because I think, obviously people followed along all the way up until the pregnancy, and I think we should let him in sort of on like the day of.
Oh, great. Yeah. Now that we've been kind of like stern with all your listeners, we can
not stern. I just like, it's the same question over and over and over again. So I felt like it was important to sort of lead this podcast episode with the 2 most popular questions that we get and or statements. So yeah.
Most people are really, really nice and happy for us.
Yes, we will say that. All right. So getting to September 26th, 2024, Bishop's birthday.
Well, we had planned, our doctor by consulting with our surrogate, had planned to induce because he was kind of ready, and so we could all be there, and it was kind of controlled. And then he decided to come about 24 hours before that was going to happen, and he came naturally and pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I just want to say we've had an incredible relationship with our surrogate and her husband and just her entire family.
Yeah.
Oh, he's hungry again. And so we're on a group text, and the husband of our surrogate basically said, "Hey, we're gonna go check in. You guys should get here." And we drove straight to the birthing center.
Yeah.
Down in Orange County, and I mean, it's sort of surreal. We get in there, we check in, and within an hour, one of the nurses, which, by the way, I just want to shout out the entire
nurses. We love you.
All of the nurses at our birthing center. You know which one it is. We absolutely love and adore, and had the best experience.
And just as an aside, the funniest part of the experience, I think, is like you bond with these nurses so much. They have 12-hour shifts. And when they like come by to be like, "Hey, I'm leaving, but this is so-and-so," you're like, "If you leave me, I'll die."
You're like, "I have this button and I'm going to call you every 5 minutes."
Yeah. And then you're like, "Who is this new person?" You're like a little suspicious. And then within 45 minutes, you're
fall
like,
in love.
"I can't live without you."
I know. There is so many great nurses at our birthing center, and we really appreciate and adore you. But so we get there, and truly within an hour, a nurse popped into our room, which the setup was our surrogate and her husband and her family had her own room. Mm-hmm. We had our own room.
And they shared a wall.
So for those of you who have seen the video of me in the hospital bed and asked why I was in the hospital bed, we had our own room. It was not being used by anybody. That bed was specifically for us because we slept in the hospital for 2 nights.
Yeah.
So we get there, and within an hour, the nurse walks in and basically says to both of us, "Are you guys ready to have a baby?" Mm-hmm. And we said yes, and went over.
She had gotten the epidural.
Yeah.
And things just moved really quickly.
Really quickly. So we go into the surrogate's room, and it was, I don't know, I feel like the most magical, loving experience.
We were really lucky. I mean, they let us, dim the lights a little and put on our own music, and it was a small group of people, and the doctor who delivered him was the doctor we had worked with for months. We were lucky that he was able to be there and was working then.
Yeah.
So it was so fast.
It was so fast. And I know like there's some people out there that are like shaking their head because their birth was like 12 to 24 hours.
She pushed for like 5 minutes or less.
She truly pushed for 5 minutes.
Maybe 3 minutes? I mean, it was like
that's
really
also
fast.
why she's a surrogate.
Yeah.
Is because she was born to...
And she just looked like beautiful and so like strong and healthy, and
yeah,
it was cool.
Well, another question we got is, how did you choose your surrogate? And I think it's important to tell people like we're both big energy guys. We love good, positive energy, and that's exactly what she gave us from like the first moment we interviewed / met with her, and it carried on throughout the entire pregnancy. I can say.
Yeah.
Like just the best experience,
one of the nicest, most wonderful people we've ever met and ever will.
Another question that people ask is, what is our relationship with our surrogate, and do we plan on having her be a part of Bishop's lives and or our lives? Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to say yes, if she wants that.
Of course. Yeah. I think it's also like realistic. Like we live a couple hours away. Like in LA, you don't see someone if they live on the other side of a freeway.
Right.
Like I really do think we'll stay in touch and send photos and like, maybe go to each other's kids' birthday parties and stuff like that. And, but also like she's busy living her life with her family and growing her family, and so are we. But in terms of the experience, like it really couldn't have been more beautiful and wonderful with her and her family.
Yeah. And I think one thing she said too is just like she knew what this was in the most respectful and loving way.
Totally.
She felt like, she's like, I didn't feel as attached to him as I did with my own son. Mm-hmm. And like, because I knew what this experience was.
Yeah. I think the only part that I remember being difficult for her, because we checked in a lot and had some really honest conversations, was when she had morning sickness.
Yeah.
That was emotionally a little tough for her, because she's like, I don't feel well. And I'm, when this happened to me before, like it was my child. And so it felt a little more like worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the doctor found her a nausea medication that's safe for pregnancy, and the morning sickness went away. And then it just seemed like was a really nice pregnancy.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about, because I was very nervous about newborn phase. And even being in the hospital, I will, once again, being in the hospital for we had people give us advice of like, get in, get out of the hospital, don't stay there. I loved it because I learned so much. And also we sort of had the safety net / blanket of the nurses and doctors at the hospital. I think it was important that we stay there both nights.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been more tired, because the first night we didn't sleep for 15 minutes
At all.
You're just sort of like, because the thing that I think if you haven't had a child before, like, that you don't realize is you sort of think like you're in the hospital and like there's somebody around all the time. Like, if the baby's healthy and they, do all the tests right after birth, there are hours sometimes that go by between someone coming in the room. And so we were both just like, is he breathing? Like, what's happening? Like, does he need something?
The amount of times you check to see if he was breathing in the night.
Now he's a loud sleeper and just like grunting all the time. So that helps.
Yeah. As you're going to hear throughout this podcast.
I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you. The hospital time was really magical and sort of like felt like a year and like 2 minutes.
Oh, what I was going to say is, I was very nervous for the infant phase, like newborn. And I was really proud of myself, and I was really excited that I sort of like, it just kicked in. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like babies I can do, newborns really intimidate me. And within a matter of like a day, I was, swaddling like a pro, changing diapers.
You're natural.
Yeah, it was great.
And I had the opposite experience where like my older brother has 5 kids. I've been around newborns for 20 years. And there were a few times where I was like, oh my God, like, am I doing this right? And it's different when it's your kid and you're not just holding the baby for an hour, feeding them a bottle and changing their diaper. It's like it's their full-time parent. And so I think I thought I was going to be a little bit more of a natural.
Yeah.
But I think we had complementary strengths. Like, you're the world's best burper.
Get the burps out.
Yeah. And everybody has their own swaddle style.
Yeah.
I think what we could talk about is how with this, there are these things in life that, are business, and there's a monetary component or transaction part of it. And they're also somewhat spiritual and miraculous. So like doctors and nurses, like everyone knows, like that's a business.
Yeah.
But when they're in the room helping bring your child into the world, that's miraculous. And so there's this sort of crossover, and I think we felt that a lot too with the with the egg donor and the surrogate.
Yeah.
Yes, they got paid. Yes, there are legal contracts, but there's also this element of like, miracle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that is, I don't know. I feel like from start to finish, from the moment we had somebody helping us look for our surrogate, our egg donor, to the moments we signed both those contracts, to the moment that we walked into the doctor's office, everybody had such great, magical, awesome energy.
Yeah.
And I think it helped.
And for people who are doing this, let's tell them how long it took. So from the moment we went to like test and freeze our sperm, I think that was June of 2022, to the moment
it was before our wedding.
Yeah. To the moment we brought a baby home from the hospital, which was September 2024. It was like 2 years and 3 months.
Yeah. And for us, I mean, there was a few start and stops.
Yeah.
And I think I would advise people as they're making their decisions, choosing surrogates and egg donors, to lean on their doctors and listen to them and consider what they're saying, because these doctors are professionals. We had a doctor that was very, very picky and selective of
conservative, you could say. Yeah.
Conservative of who he would work with.
Yeah.
Both egg donors and surrogates. And at first we were like, why is it like he's so strict? Hopefully they get approved. And we now understand why.
Yeah.
You've had family members and friends who have gone through countless
10,
failed
12
IVF
rounds.
Transfers. We were lucky enough and blessed enough to have our first transfer work.
Yeah.
And I believe it's because he is so selective and so picky.
Yeah, and to have healthy embryos with the first, egg retrieval.
Yeah. Should we get into some of the other questions that people had? Well, there was one that asked if we were getting ready, if we wanted another kid. I was like, can we just enjoy Bishop first?
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes, though. How do you split parental duties? Do you have a system, or do you just go with the flow? I would say we're pretty just go with the flow. We're like whoever in the moment can handle it. You just do it.
Yeah.
It's like a full service restaurant at our house though right now. I will say that. It's like if you're not making a bottle, you're cleaning up the bottles and then you're sterilizing the bottles while you're getting the next bottle for the next feed ready.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm just proud of you.
I'm proud of you too. And you have combined two of your favorite things, watching football and being a dad.
Yeah.
And it's him being born during football season was very exciting for you.
It was the best scenario possible.
We have a lot of football onesies.
We have lots of football onesies. Newborn naps are the best.
Yeah. I would say I'm like in the nursery more, just kind of like hanging with him. I think we both try to leave our phones to the side. That's something that we talked about a little bit when, our surrogate was pregnant with him, was just like trying to be really present.
Yeah.
So I think we've done a pretty good job at that. It's also sort of like you don't want to be on your phone.
Yeah.
You're just like watching him. It's cute.
Another person asked, did you read any books before the baby arrived to help prepare?
Yeah.
And I teased this a little bit on my Instagram. Jordan read a lot of books. I read part of one. Mainly because like if it doesn't have pictures, I don't really read it.
Don't sell yourself short.
I read every once in a while.
Yeah.
I just get my education in other ways.
Yeah.
What were some of your favorite books / what was like your biggest takeaway from the books that you read?
I didn't read a lot of the books that were about like how to get your baby to sleep and how to take tips and tricks for like having an easier time with your baby. I was more interested in like what's the philosophy of parenting. And I think there are these different ways, like Dr. Becky's super famous and like a lot of people like her, and a lot of people think that it's like super soft. Like there are all of these memes of her being like, you should not stab the cat, like I know you're having big feelings, but like, and I think we were like, we're not going to be like that, but obviously we're not going to like spank and like give a 2-year-old
like there's a happy medium.
Yeah. So one of the books I really liked was one that a friend gave us, a very dear friend, called The Blessing of a Skinned Knee. And it's sort of it's written by a psychologist who noticed that there were all these kids that she was treating whose parents were like had plenty of like money and resources and whatever, and the kids were like really struggling because they just weren't self-reliant and they weren't getting a chance to like sort of mess up and learn. It's basically like the opposite of helicopter parenting. So we read a lot, or I did, about basically just how The Anxious Generation was another book I really loved. It's kind of about older kids, but basically about how the rise in helicopter parenting coincided with everybody being online. Yeah. And how, people either didn't have a computer or had one that the whole family shared. And at the same time, parents got overprotective. Kids started having access to the internet in their own rooms, so privately, and so they were able to get a bunch of like mental health problems through that and feel disconnected from their neighborhood and their friends and their parents. Yeah,
that's going to be a challenge for us too as he enters into his early teen years.
But there's a big movement of like Wait Till 8 is big in LA, where like parents voluntarily all agree to not give their kid a cell phone till 8th grade. I mean, obviously, it's all changing really fast. By the time he's in kindergarten, AI will be...
They're going to have glasses that can
a dominating force. Yeah, it's so... We don't know anything.
Yeah. Well, I'll link those books in the show notes so you guys can check those out. But another question we have is, have you met with a certified child passenger safety tech for car seat safety? We didn't, or maybe we did.
Yeah.
But we did through the California Highway Patrol.
Yeah,
so
that person was what you just said.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. I didn't
He's
know
an
that.
officer, like he's a CHP.
Yeah, so for those of you who live in California, and I'm pretty sure in most states have this, you can go onto the Highway Patrol Service website. You could book an appointment, and they actually help walk you through how to install your car seat properly in your car. And the stats were staggering.
40-something% of kids who were injured in a car accident
was because they were either loaded incorrectly and or the car seat was installed incorrectly.
Yeah.
So for us, it was important. We went 2 weeks before his due date and just had the officer walk us through, taught us a lot about our own car seat, and installed
High tech, low tech. Like they said, if there's a gap between your car seat and the seat, you can cut up a pool noodle, like from Target. That are
I currently have a pool noodle in my
and
car.
then you set, that's like an approved safe thing to do apparently.
Yeah.
But there are tons of videos too on how to do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, someone told us, like, make sure you register your car seat. Like, I never register anything that I buy, like, you know, but if you do that and there's a recall on your car seat or a problem, like, they'll alert you.
Yeah.
And there was just a big recall on one of those rotational car seats that we actually have in our garage for when he's a little bigger, for a safety reason. So I would, like, people should definitely fill those out.
While we're on the topic of products, what has been like a game changer for you as far as like what, because we did a partnership with Babylist and had the ability to consult with their experts and really build an awesome baby registry. But what have been some products that you've used that you really like?
That nursing pillow.
Oh, boppy. Yeah, the bopping.
I think that's
saves
our
your
number
shoulders.
one.
Yeah.
So you don't have to hold your shoulders like in a hunched position to keep him comfortable.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
That's like my favorite. And it's like one of the least expensive things probably.
Yeah.
The baby Brezza bottle washer we use 3 times a day.
I know. We have one for upstairs and downstairs.
Yeah, it just helps because, I mean, obviously we could wash them, but I didn't realize how much of a deal it was. Like if a bottle sits out for 4 hours, like there's bacteria, like you can't reuse them. You have to really, really be on top of that. So that having that machine helps.
I still really like all of his little outfits he's getting, including this incredible farming onesie.
I know. It's so cute.
Sweet boy. Let's get to another question. So I got a lot of the cost questions. I think, can we break it down into chunks for people? Like, keep in mind too, like we just said, this whole process takes about 2.5 years.
I would also say, as a preamble, we live in Los Angeles, you know, which is one of the most expensive cities in the world. So like, we
spent more to protect. I mean, we hired a concierge service to help go to the agencies on our behalf so that our names were in agency databases. And I think that costs a little extra, but like all in, you can find different ranges.
The ranges are wild though.
The ranges are
like an egg donor is $10,000 to $500,000.
I know.
But like I would say an average is like 30 to 100.
Yeah. I think that's a fair one. So let's talk about what you're going to need. You're going to need an egg donor, and typically
some people will.
Some people will need either an egg donor or a sperm donor, and typically you go through an agency. So you'll have to pay some sort of agency fee, and then you'll have to pay a fee to one of those donors.
Yeah. When we were looking at egg donor candidates, we didn't get their names. Their privacy is protected, but we saw photos of them as babies, toddlers, children, teenagers, adults. Got a ton of information about the health and sort of biological background of their family. We have a friend right now who is looking for a sperm donor to have a kid through IVF. And for sperm donors, you don't really get photos.
Yeah, it's changing, but yes, that's the norm for sperm donors is men do not have to put their current photos. You get baby photos, and I think the times are changing.
Well, someone could make a lot of money.
Donor Bank USA, who was a partner in season 1, they have photos of their sperm donors.
Oh, good.
Which is incredible. And I think that should start to be the new standard is men and women, obviously, in this process.
And it's a pie chart, like what we were looking for. Like we didn't optimize any one thing, like looks or health or education or character traits. We looked at all of them and made a holistic decision. So, yeah, was our egg donor someone that we found beautiful? Yes. It's also someone we found really smart. We were impressed by how she was sort of like ambitious and enterprising and had a very cool life story.
Yeah.
And was physically and mentally
It was almost
healthy.
like the intangibles meant more to us when we were selecting our egg donor.
Yeah. Any questions through that?
A lot of people were asking about his name and where it comes from and why we landed on it. And I don't really remember like a huge reason other than the fact that like we fell in love with Bishop. We just loved the name from the beginning. We had a lot of B names. And then I think you Googled the meaning of Bishop and it meant the overseer.
Yeah.
And I think that was sort of when we're like, that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's just a gut feeling. I mean, yes, we really liked, because his last name is Brown Underwood, we liked the idea of the alliteration of like having a B name. And there were several other B names that we liked that were on the trending list of the top 100 most popular names this year. And so we wanted him to have a name that everyone could pronounce. It wasn't going to be like someone was going to be like, how do you say this, or getting pronounced wrong. That wasn't like sort of weird and out there, but wasn't common and popular. So I think that, the only thing that I was worried about is that people would think that it was like, we were naming him like a religious name, because a bishop is obviously like a religious figure. Yeah. But we just liked the name.
Loved the name.
Yeah.
That was always my
And we spent the night with him in the hospital before we named it. The birth certificate clerk came by a few times and was sweet, but kind of like, okay, like, you got to do this before you leave. And I think
we looked at each other. We were like, you sure?
You were more sure than I was.
I was for sure more sure than you were.
And do you want to say why his middle name is Colton?
Oh, yeah. So his full name is Bishop Colton Brown Underwood. And in my family, it's a tradition that the firstborn gets the father's first name as the middle name. And then the second gets the mom or the other parent, the dad, in our case, will pass on his name and or last name to the secondborn. So family traditions, keeping them alive. What has surprised you the most since bringing little man home?
I keep saying, and this is the true answer, is I wasn't expecting to think of him as so much of a person. I was expecting to think of him as like a baby who is asleep all the time, eats and poops.
Yeah.
I was really surprised by how much of an individual he seemed right away. Like a person who's like here with like a soul and a mind and a personality, and was very surprised at how good of a communicator he is.
That's mine. I just like, no, you're fine. But that it leads right into mine. I mean, the little groans and grunts and cries are all different. And I picked up on it.
You learned it way before me. Yeah. You were like, this cry means he needs to burp. And I was like, how can you tell?
It's because it's like in the upper lungs.
Yeah. The other thing that was a little sad is like the first few days he'd be like asking for food, and we would go to feed him, and he would drink like 2 sips and then cry. Yeah. And then we realized that's like, I'm hungry, but I also need to burp.
Yeah. We figured it out pretty quickly, but it is mainly because of him and how good of a communicator he is. Yeah. That was definitely the biggest thing that surprised me. What has been a challenge and or is still a challenge for you?
It's an adjustment, to be sure, that like just a mental adjustment. Like I'm really tired at the end of the day. Not because it's super hard, like he sleeps a lot, but like the mind share. Like before, my mind was mostly like, what do I need to do for work? Like, have we fed the dogs? Like, have we spent time together, you and I? And now it's like there's another person that we share our life with and our home with. And it just takes a minute to recalibrate. And so I'm kind of always thinking of how long has it been since he X, Y, or Z, since he ate, since he had a diaper change.
It's crazy because you ask all those questions for him, and yet there's been a few days where it's like 1 o'clock and I'm like, have I brushed my teeth today?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Have I taken care of myself? Have I ate anything?
Well, but we tell each other too. Yeah. In like a nice way, like, you should go brush your teeth.
Yeah, you tell me that a little bit more often than I tell you, but let's talk about witching hour.
Oh, yeah.
Because I posted that he has this hour. For those of you who do not know what witching hour is, that's what we're calling it. I think a lot of people call it that. He has this hour around 7 p.m. to about 8 to 9 sometimes that he's just unhappy. He's crying. He's moving around. He wants to be swaddled, but then he wants to be free. Everything he's communicating to us is contradicting like the next or the previous cry. Mm-hmm. And I've learned since posting that that's very normal. Mm-hmm. And what some people have told me, and once again, I don't know if this is good advice or just advice from people who have gone through it. And from what we've heard too, is start to try to get your baby into a routine. Yeah. So somebody actually told us, and you're going to love this. Somebody said, why don't you start bath time right at the beginning of witching hour? Because then it like calms him down, soothes him a little bit by being in the water. I'll take him. Yeah.
Well, he got his first bath last week.
He did.
So cute.
It was the best.
He has a little belly button now. And he loved it. He, just like his dad's, was obsessed with being in the bath.
We love baths.
Yeah. I'm on a group, like, text thread with a bunch of mom friends. And it's cool. I think that's another thing people might be interested in is it's all about non-toxic baby and home products, like how to avoid, artificial ingredients and plastics. There's all this information now about how microplastics are in everything.
Yeah.
And now we know that a lot of health stuff is caused by plastics. So, hopefully there will start to be some like government action to clean up this kind of stuff. I think we could also talk about.
I just want to say this. I think it's so cool that you really leaned into that. And I have obviously been a little bit more outspoken, especially with the Kellogg stuff, with the cereals and the color dyes and just all of the toxic chemicals that are in food for children.
There are thousands of products for sale in the United States that from global companies where they're made differently in other countries in a healthier way. It costs a little bit more money.
This will be a full episode on another day because I have a lot to say in that, but I just want to say it's really cool that you have helped open my eyes and you take it so serious. I just think the whole conversation around different ways to raise your baby should be less about shame and projecting, because nobody has it all figured out 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's sort of whack at times in the parenting community is you're so quick to like, I remember there was this one photo that I posted with him on game day and I set him in the Snuggle Me for truly a second to take a picture so that you could see my sweatshirt matched his onesie. And they were like, his neck is crunched. He won't be able to.
I'm a doctor and I can tell you that this is not good.
I know. And I was like, I literally set him down for a second, which I'm sitting right next to him just to take this photo.
Other people are very worried that he's always cold.
I know.
This child runs hot.
He runs
if
really
anything,
hot.
like we give him layers and he's like asking for them to be taken off. So, but again, most people are like really sweet. It's a lot of moms and grandmas who DM us being like, I'm worried that his feet are cold. Like, I promise.
Part of me thinks it's because we're two dads that's why they feel obligated to come for us.
They're not coming for us. They're being sweet. Most of them are being sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's nice. By the way, we don't know everything, and we have had people tell us things that were like, oh, that's a really good point, or like I never thought we would be giving him a medication, and there's this product called Mylacan, which obviously we had never heard of, have no association with, but it's just like this really safe way to get gas bubbles out of their digestive tract.
Yep.
So, and the first night we used it and I was like, I don't want to give them anything. And then I like researched it and it was like, actually it's like the safest thing you could give them and it really makes them more comfortable. So we've had to use that a few times.
The best investment that Jordan and I have made to this point was we hired a night doula and a night nurse. And
it is an investment. That's a good way of putting it. Like it's
because we both work from home, and we also, I think it's important to say, we don't have a nanny, we don't have daytime help. Like the
majority of the day we're
with Bishop.
Yeah,
and in moments Jordan will need to hop on a meeting and or a Zoom, and I take him, and then same with me. And I couldn't imagine having to do that with an hour or 2 hours of sleep. So. That is why we ultimately made the decision to hire a night nurse, because we knew that we wanted to be there throughout the day with him and raise him, that we just needed a little bit of assistance in the night.
Yeah. And I would say a few things. Number one, we realized we're fortunate to be able to do that. Like a lot of people can't afford it. Secondly, we've had the whole range of responses. Mostly people are being like, either that's what I did or God, I would have loved that if I could have done it. But we definitely had people in our lives who were like, I don't think you should do that. Like he wants you. And it's like, I actually think he wants somebody who's like rested and like ready to take care of him. And it's not for very long, it's a few months. So we can kind of get our legs under us. And, obviously you can only plan so much when you have a baby, and I work in politics and there's kind of a big election happening in 14 days. So I needed a little bit of sleep.
Yeah. I mean, I want to share the platform. Do you have anything to say about the upcoming election and just a message to voters out there?
I think vote. Like, it devastates me that people think their vote doesn't matter. You know, in 2000, it was 538 votes in Florida that gave us the president. Like, you know, there are all kinds of things you can imagine of how the world would have been different. Like, if Al Gore had won, we would have taken climate change seriously 20 years earlier. You know, I think it was a combined 80,000 people across 3 or 4 states that made the difference, with both Hillary losing and Biden winning, you know, Trump winning in 2016. So I think let's just keep it really topical. There's one issue that's been in the news a lot, which is reproductive rights. And people feel that's really related to IVF and surrogacy, and it's all lumped together. And I think it's important to say, like, the United States is actually pretty far ahead. It's one of the places where we do pretty well. Like, it's illegal in England to pay a surrogate.
I had somebody that wanted me to talk about the surrogacy and IVF laws in Italy.
So, yeah, Giorgia Meloni is the name of the Prime Minister of Italy. She's sort of like a MAGA, very similar, like a Trump type there. And she went in and did one of the cruelest things I've ever heard, which is she went to each little town and city in Italy and retroactively changed the birth certificates of babies that were born using surrogacy, were parents who were Italian who had kids outside of Italy and came back. So it's really topical. Obviously, reproductive rights is all sort of it's basically just personal freedom. Like, do you have the freedom to do what you want to do and to live your life the way you want to live it, or is the government going to tell you what to do? So I think with IVF in particular, you know, Trump said in the last couple of weeks, I'm the father of IVF. And I think what he's pro at is saying something over and over, but then the actions, just sort of counting on the fact that, like, the news moves so fast that people aren't really having the bandwidth to do follow-up. And so what's true is that twice in the past few months, like, it has come before the Congress. Like, do you want to protect IVF? And Republicans have voted no. And they haven't protected IVF. And Biden would have signed that bill. So, you know, I just would encourage people to, like, whatever issue is really important to you, don't just listen to what people are saying. Like, look into what people are doing. And you don't have to watch the news for that if you don't trust mainstream news. But there are really cool creators. A lot of these people, you know, digital creators who spend tons of time keeping people informed.
Yeah, I just say do your research and vote for the future that you want to have, and see how the policies and the candidates affect your life and the way that you want to raise your kids' lives. So, Well, my love, this was great. And I just want to tell everybody out there, I'm really, really excited for season 2 of Daddyhood. We have so many incredible ideas and format changes and just ways to make it fresh and new and different. Also add in a little bit, you know, pop culture into the mix. I will be adding a co-host for season 2, so stay tuned for that.
It's not me.
And it's not Jordan. As you can be on as much as you want.
Thanks, babe.
Thank you so much for the love and the support during season 1. Thank you for all of the love and the energy and the blessings that you sent to our family. I know Jordan thanks you. I know Bishop thanks you. And I can't wait for you guys to follow along during season 2. And
if you're out there trying to start your own family, good luck. Like, it's a beautiful thing. It's an emotional thing. It's a hard thing.
But it's worth it.
And if there are any childless cat ladies listening, I also think it's important to say, like, some of our favorite people don't plan on having children for whatever reason, and that's also cool. And there are a million ways to have a well-lived life. So, yeah, I'll echo everything Colton says. Thank you.
Mic drop on the childless cat ladies. Love y'all.
Bye.
Bye.